round. This is Tony. With me as always, we have John. So, not a lot happening in the Kings world, but a lot going on around the NBA still, with the playoffs still happening. Maybe 2 sweeps about to happen. Heat might be able to sweep the Celtics, and Nuggets looking like they might sweep the Lakers. And then we also had the draft lottery last week. One of the first time in many years where the Kings were not in the draft lottery for once. That was kind of refreshing. Spurs got the number 1 pick. They're going to get Wembanyama. How do you feel about that, John, in particular, about Greg Popovich getting another possibly all-time great center?
If I'm looking at this just from the outside and just looking at it from a pure enjoyer of basketball perspective, I think that's awesome because it's just like you see the Spurs already have so many nice pieces. You're pairing up one of the best coaches in history with one of the best prospects in recent memory. That is just it's going to be something that creates hopefully a lot of great basketball to watch. But if you're looking at it from like a Kings perspective, it's interesting. I mean, I don't know if like the Spurs are necessarily like all of a sudden going to be like, right there contending for the Western Conference title or anything like that. But, it's something that it's coming up in a few miles. That exit will be there. So not shouldn't use that metaphor.
David Robinson and Tim Duncan can we get compared to Zach Collins and Victor Wembanyama?
You know what? People underestimate Zach Collins.
Zach Collins.
If that boy just stayed healthy, I mean, he was like a top 10 pick, wasn't he?
Yeah, Sacramento Kings drafted him. Top number 10. And they traded him for Justin Jackson and Scala Bissiere.
He's a top 10 pick. Pick number 10.
Yeah. I mean, you just feel at that rate, the Kings should have just kept him because Justin Jackson and Scal didn't do shit.
No.
But, although I thought Scal would have done something, but no. I have a better question, and I'm not like some draft guru or scout, but do you look at Victor Wembanyama and being like, this guy could be a bust? Kind of like the same way maybe we look at Chet Holmgren, or people do.
Oh yeah, I was right when you asked that right as you were saying Chet Holmgren, I was thinking that's immediately what I think of is the thin frame that has to come into play. It'll be interesting to see what happens. And not just like in his rookie season. And obviously, I don't think the thin frame concerns for Holmgren. Obviously, they didn't have anything to do with his foot injury. That was just a freak accident, really.
Mm-hmm.
But, it's not necessarily what happens with the frame in the first season, but it's the wear and tear. Like looking at early in the career, like what happens? How many injuries does he pick up? And I think Wembanyama in particular, from what I've read, has had injuries along every stage of his career. So, like, there's definitely chances for that not to. I mean, there's chances for him to be a bust due to injury, but it just feels like, barring that, he seems so dynamic in so many ways. And I think the frame will have to come into play too to probably make him reach his ceiling. So, it'll just be interesting to see how all of it kind of plays out. But it seems like if there's no injury, that he's going to be pretty good. And yeah, the injury possibility is probably his biggest chance of being a bust. But I don't know. He's pretty great. But I do get distrustful naturally from just hype about guys. I mean, you watch him, it's crazy. It's insane. He's 7'4", 8-foot wingspan. He's crazy the way he moves with and without the ball. His shooting, he has a good baseline of shooting skill. He's already technically a stretch big because of his catch and shoot ability. He's gonna be, great from the start and all that stuff. But, the hype as to whether or not he'll be like on a scale or better than Tim Duncan, David Robinson. I don't know. I mean, like we'll have to see, but it's palpable his talent and his potential ceiling,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, he's been getting all the hype in the last year, really. So it'd be nice to finally get to see him play in the NBA next season. Like you said, barring any injuries. So yeah,
and with Popovich again, I mean, it's going to be great. You know,
Mm-hmm.
his defense, his floor running ability, his floor stretching ability, his work on the glass. He's going to be utilized in a way that maximizes what he can do already and what it can do for the future. I mean, I think that's a kind of, with a coach that's so experienced and so good and surrounds himself with such a good staff all the time, that's just almost amplifying the promise that Wembanyama has, because you're putting him in a place that's going to be able to foster that probably just as good as anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
So it's scary for other NBA teams, big time. I was just happy, and again, like I was kind of happy the Spurs got. I was just like happy that Portland didn't get him, or somebody like that.
Portland.
Like if Portland got him, it's just like, oh god, like here it comes. We're gonna start talking about Damian Lillard's wine.
Don't even get me started on Lillard. I mean, I read somewhere that Portland's gonna leverage their pick for a player at the third spot. I don't know. Just give up. Just give up on that Lillard train. You're already 4 years. And once you traded McCollum, you should have just traded Lillard. I didn't really understand the move to trade McCollum. I mean, I guess that was only last year, but like, what did you think? You're just gonna be like fine this year? I don't know.
Wasn't there speculation that they were going to trade him and then re-sign him or something like that? Or am I making that up? I felt like it was probably just pure speculation, if anything. But
I'm honestly surprised that doesn't happen more often. Like, why don't you just be like, I'm in the final year of my contract? Like, Aroldis Chapman did that. He's like the only guy I can remember. He was on the Yankees, got traded to the Cubs, won a ring, and got like the Yankees a bunch of prospects or whatever. And then he just like signed with the Yankees again. Like, it's just like the ultimate win right there. Because he was like a big Yankees fan. It's like, all right, let me go win a ring because the Yankees weren't doing anything that year. Get some prospects for the team, and then just head straight back to them after the season's over.
Yeah, I forgot about that. I don't know. I guess I could see that happening a little bit more in baseball. But
I'm just surprised it doesn't happen more often. Like, if you're so loyal to the team, then just like get traded for like half the season.
Yeah, but the thing with McCollum is it's like, he gets moved to New Orleans, and like they won in one of the play-in spots, right? Or like one of the playoff spots from the play-in.
Yeah, I think so, right?
And they kind of like the camaraderie that builds, I think, when you're going on a run. I don't know. I mean, like they won a World Series in Chicago. I don't know. Maybe that's not a great explanation, but I would imagine that, whatever camaraderie was built in that time, and then kind of that hope for the future. Like there was a lot of hope around New Orleans right after that, and rightfully so. So maybe that played into things, just like you're on a different track. I mean, obviously, I don't even know if the idea that they thought McCollum would come back in free agency or whatever is even true or not. But I kind of remember
me. I don't know if it was like that was an actual report or like that's what people speculated. It's like, yeah, he's in contract year. He'll just come back because he loves Portland, and he just didn't. But I don't remember.
Yeah.
Anyways, talking about centers like Victor Wembanyama, we spent a lot of the last podcast talking about maybe a replacement for Barnes. If Barnes decides to leave or the Kings don't decide to resign him, and who could fill in his spot. Well, let's spend a little time today talking about who could fill in, or not, who the Kings could grab to fill in for that backup center spot, because it was so bad last year. Alex Lynn did a good job down the stretch, but he doesn't, I don't know. You think the Kings would probably just try to go smaller, is my guess, or try to get like I don't know, just a better fit than Alex Lynn, per se, even though he played solid down the line. Do you have any favorites to fill that for the Kings to go after and sign?
Yeah, I mean, there's loads of guys, but before we dive into that, I do want to say that if the Kings have Holmes on their roster, they could easily reacquire Len and Metu if they wanted to. And obviously we know with Holmes, the idea is to move him as soon as possible. He's owed more than $12 million over the next in each of the next 2 years. And in terms of Len and Metu, I think one of the things that's interesting about them is I wouldn't suggest bringing them back. I don't think anybody would suggest bringing them back to be the primary backup five. But especially when we go through this list, you got some guys that maybe are smaller, some guys that maybe are bigger or play one side of the ball better than the other. And with that, for that third center on the depth chart, kind of complementing that with either Len or Metu because of their continuity with the team, the chemistry, all that stuff. They're known quantities. You know what you're going to get out of them. That might not be a bad idea. So I think it's worth keeping in mind that, they could come back, I guess, in a basically a third center role. But they could also fill that with another free agent if they wanted, or a rookie that they draft or something like that. But I mean, I think that's got to be fair to say. Try to move Holmes and then consider the fact that maybe Len and Metu come back in a very, very reduced role.
I don't see Metu or Len coming back. I mean, I feel like at that point, I mean, I know Kate is such a work in progress still, but he's shown a lot of improvement. He finished the G League with some honors, the G League season. So I mean, at that point, if we're talking about a third backup, I mean, it might as well just be Keita at that point.
Yeah, I mean, you might be getting to the threshold where you need to decide whether Keita's a legitimate NBA guy or if he's just going to be a G Leaguer.
Yeah,
I think last season he showed he was just a G Leaguer. He looked mostly just kind of unnatural and was susceptible to fouling. And I mean, he showed a lot of good things, but it still seemed like he was a ways to go before he's a rotation guy in the NBA. So it'll be really interesting to see kind of what happens, I guess, going into camp and whatnot, and what the evaluation is and what he does in terms of work over the off season. So I agree with that. But even bringing like Metu in to compete with Keita, I mean, and maybe I'm not even talking Metu because Metu's not the best candidate to do that, honestly. But there'll obviously have to be somebody there to compete with Keita for essentially that third center role, I guess, or maybe even the back of center role. But we got a nice list of potential candidates that the Kings could bring in. Some of them very gettable in terms of contract price. That would be probably very good, or at least better than those guys. But yeah, Keita's interesting. I don't know. I still think there's a big question mark around him.
Yeah, there definitely is. But I'd say for third, I feel like he could fill in for third. I mean, he is still very awkward, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's a question of do you want to keep him playing at that point?
That is true. Because you'd kind of rather have him in the G League at that point. It's a good point.
Yeah, I don't know, though.
I don't either.
Because what is he going to play in the G League? Is he ever going to leave? That brings up that question. So it'll be. I think that's one of the fascinating things to think about going forward. Is Keita going to be able to show enough growth? Because he's getting to a point where he's going to be entering his third professional season. So
yeah, he'll only have one more year left on his contract, right? If that, I think they have to pick it up.
Yeah, so it's kind of big for him. But considering that list, I want to ask you, who would be your dream pickup to come be the backup center? Don't say like Brook Lopez, like somebody that.
No, I mean, yeah, Nikola Vucevic out the bench. Yeah. No, I mean, I think it's going to be the same answer for everyone. It's going to be Naz Reid. I mean, he's just one. He always kills the Kings, but two, he would just fit into. I mean, he played a great backup center. I feel like the last couple seasons for Minnesota, can stretch the floor, is a physical guy, kind of like an enforcer almost too, and somebody can just slide in there seamlessly. Really, I mean, I think he's most people's number one choice. That's like a realistic option. Although I don't think he's realistic enough. I don't know. I feel like Naz Reid can be more of a starting center, and I feel like he's going to try to go for that contract. Will he get it? I'm not sure, but he's going to command some money at least as a backup five. And if you still have Holmes, I don't know if you'll be able to give him what he wants. How would you feel about Naz, or who's your number one guy?
Sticking with Reid, I mean, he's probably the most complete option available. And just the fact that Minnesota brings in Rudy Gobert out there on a team that already has got Karl Anthony Towns, and Naz Reid goes out there and just shines and had his best season. He does a little bit of everything. I think one of the things that's interesting would be to see him be coached by Mike Brown and company on the defensive end, because defensively he hasn't shown really as much as he's capable of. I mean, he moves pretty well. He's heavy. Like, he's like 250 pounds. Maybe not. Let me pull that up before I start spouting that off. He's 264 pounds. So I was underestimating. He's 264 pounds, and he moves pretty darn well. I mean, he could be, I feel like he's got some potential to be a little bit more versatile defensively, far more effective on that end. And yeah, he would just be really ideal. I think you pegged it right, though. I just think somebody's going to pay him. Everybody, whether they deserve it or not, people will go out there and pay for certain people. And I feel like stretch big men with more to show that can potentially be better than what they've just displayed this past season. Those are real commodities that people want to capitalize on. So I feel like Naz Reid's going to get a pretty good deal, and it's going to probably fall outside the Kings ballpark. And also, it's just like, one of the things you have to keep in mind with the backup five, especially in relation to someone as talented as him, is that how many minutes does the backup five play for the Kings? Like 11, 12, 13 minutes, 14 minutes at most. Like, it's important, but I feel like it's a role that you probably want to be a little more cost effective at. And like I was kind of alluding to earlier, maybe you even want a little bit of depth there, some options. Obviously, you'd like to have one solid guy fill that role, but I think that kind of comes into play. But in terms of like, if you could have anybody basically total wish list style, it's like, yeah, I mean, he falls at regardless of talking about a backup five, a starting five, just free agent in general. I mean, he's got to be one of the more talked about ones. Obviously, not like potentially Kyrie Irving or something like that, but yeah, he's terrific. He'd be awesome. Do you have like maybe like, I don't want to say a dark horse, but maybe someone that could be like a cheap option that you like, that you think could be a good fit for that role on the Kings?
Yeah, I think, and you mentioned him in your article. I like Eubanks. I feel like you get him cheap and kind of just film that role, like you said, like 14 minutes a night. I mean, he was playing a little more in Portland the last couple of years, but in his San Antonio days, he wasn't playing as much, and I feel like he filled the role well. He can rebound decently, and I feel like he like knows his place within the offense, or like with on the team, and can just fill in some, just fill in those 14 minutes or so without Domas on the floor and not let it fall apart too bad. So he's like kind of like my cheaper option, but like also like a steady presence. Another name is Bismack Biyombo, another Kings draft pick, like Zach Collins traded draft night. Not a guy who can stretch the floor, and neither is Eubanks really. Even though he can hit the three, he doesn't really shoot the three. But Biyombo's, he's a good defender. You kind of know what you're going to get with them. He's going to be physical. He's going to be basically down low, but he can block some shots, and he's going to fight on the glass. So I kind of like Biyombo too for that reason, because we can always go for rebounding and defense.
Yeah, he would be extremely helpful on the defensive end and on the glass. But I do agree that Eubanks is a really good option. And having played in Portland, he played in San Antonio under Popovich. I could see him just sticking to the West Coast and sign him with Sac and have a good role. And I think, like you said, I mean, he knows his role, and part of his role is setting up other guys. I think one of the things that you'll read a lot when you look up like Eubanks' season in review or whatever, you'll hear a lot about how late in the season, when Shaedon Sharpe was getting more opportunities and whatnot, and the younger guys and lesser known players were out there, Eubanks was there kind of helping guys get looks and opening things up for people. I think he's a good screen setter. He's got good energy to him, and he hits a lot of his shots near the rim. He converts stuff and can throw down dunks and also come up with blocks on the defensive end. So I think that dunk and block combination on both ends, like, that really feeds into the energy thing. I think there's just so many things to like about Eubanks. Obviously he's not going to overwhelm you, but I think another thing that's important is that when he got traded to Portland, he started every game after, like, to finish out that season for the Trailblazers, and he was really adequate. People were very surprised by how he played in that starting role, and obviously you don't plan for this. Domas showed a lot of durability this season and a lot of toughness, probably more so toughness. But if he needed to miss a few games, I feel like you'd feel pretty okay with Eubanks going out there and starting. So in a lot of ways,
That's true.
like in talking about Reid, I mean, Reid checks so many boxes. He checks all those boxes too, essentially. And he'd be like premier. But Eubanks is just, he's ideal, like in the sense that he'd be cheaper. And it's just what you need. Obviously, it's not as good as Naz Reid, but in a lot of ways, it's a similar kind of impact, and it's dynamic in the ways he can affect the game.
Yeah.
I think
Eubanks should be. I feel like he's like who I want the Kings to get cost wise, and what he'll be able to do off the bench for the team.
Yeah. Drew Eubanks. He also looks like a leprechaun.
Where's he from?
He's American, like Ohio or something.
Really?
Yeah.
There's some guys that just like look Eastern European. I remember when I found out that
it's his hairstyle.
Yeah, I guess so. Like, I was amazed when you told me Frank Kaminsky was just American. Really?
Yeah.
He looks European. I'm surprised Eubanks is. I thought he was a foreign guy, honestly.
Eubanks. Yeah.
So, it must be his haircut, yeah. Look at it.
I think it's the hair. And then kind of the springy frame, the springy thin frame. Kind of.
Yeah.
But,
it's funny. I don't know. You just, whatever.
It is interesting. Sometimes you just kind of like assume things about players and you just never really bother to look it up. Because typically you're thinking it as you're watching a game. Like, you're not thinking of looking it up. You're just kind of there. And it'll establish things in your head. It'll just be totally wrong.
Yeah, right? I think the last name, too, Eubanks.
I mean, I think that's like English or Scottish or something.
Really?
Yeah.
I've never heard that name. Well, Drew.
You're learning a lot.
Dude, yeah, no idea. Drew Eubanks. This is the Drew Eubanks episode.
Yeah. But let's think about two guys that were on the Dallas Mavericks last season. Dwight Powell and Christian Wood. Obviously, very different players. I think Dwight Powell's an interesting one. Some people have said that there's just no way he's not going to be a lifetime Maverick, but I could see him filling that role in the Kings pretty adequately. He's one of those guys that offensively, it's very one-dimensional. Like, he's really only going to get dump-offs, lobs, putbacks, things like that. I don't think he scores from outside the paint. I don't really think he scores outside the restricted area, or at least that general area. So, but defensively, like, he's pretty good, because you have to consider the fact that the Mavericks brought back JaVale McGee to kind of fill that starting role with better defense. And I think like 3 or 4 games into the season, they just went back to Powell because he was just better at that. And, even as a starter, he didn't play a lot of minutes, but he was like a good energy guy, makes the right play. I think I'd rather have Eubanks, because I think Eubanks is also younger. I think Dwight Powell's like 31, but Dwight Powell is kind of one of those options that if you're talking cheaper, if you can get him to leave Dallas, I think he would be a pretty good option. I mean, like, what do you think about Dwight Powell?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how to feel about Dwight Powell. I never thought he was like a starter, like he started in Dallas the last couple of years. But like you said, he wasn't really getting starter minutes. I mean, I wouldn't mind him off the bench. I mean, he shot 73% this year on 3.5 attempts per game. And like you said, just mostly in the restricted area. It kind of, you know what you're going to get from Dwight Powell. You're going to get dunks and, just consistent minutes from that backup center role. I still prefer Eubanks too, maybe because of his age. And maybe there's a little more mystery to him. Like, he played well when he was a starter last year in Portland. Or Dwight just kind of like, all right, 6-4 as a starter. But like, you're not looking for a starter. You're looking for a backup, and he's a guy who's been in the league for a minute now, and there's a reason why. So I wouldn't hate Dwight Powell. Do it. Christian Wood, on the other hand, like, nah, keep Christian away from the Kings.
I totally agree about Christian Wood. I think Christian Wood is obviously a very talented offensive player. Would he even want to come to Sacramento to play a backup role?
Yeah,
Like, probably not. He's honestly, someone might pay him to be a starter. He's how old is Christian Wood?
probably mid to late 20s now.
I was gonna say, I think it's like 28, right? Like, he's probably looking at one of his last opportunities to get like a pretty big contract, being in your late 20s, maybe verging on early 30s. And I agree, it's probably not a good fit. I mean, talented offensive player, but I mean, the reason he never saw the type of minutes people thought he would get in Dallas is because he just, like you said, he doesn't defend at all. But Dwight Powell went to Stanford, and I think, like, in terms of his role, if you have adequate spacing, he's going to be able to play a similar offensive role that you saw Metu do, which is just like sit in the dunker spot or creep in for an alley-oop. And Dwight Powell's better at that. He's taller, I think, and longer. So, and he converts them well. I mean, how many times did you see Metu, like, convert like 1 out of 3 or 2 out of 4 alley-oops? It's like, how'd you miss some of those? But
yeah.
I think Dwight Powell's got better reach and a better ability to convert it. So you'd almost be getting a better Metu. I mean, you could say that about a lot of these guys. A better Metu. Because Metu tries to do so many things, and some things he does pretty okay, but a lot of these guys fill out those requirements a little bit better. But
Yeah,
I think Dwight Powell's, if you can't get Eubanks, like you said, he's solid. And in turn, that same concept of knowing your role and doing what he needs to do and filling those 5 to 7 minutes per half with just nothing but energy, because it's not that much time, like Mike Brown always says. And Powell could be a good energy guy.
Yeah, I agree.
But a guy that we were talking about at the trade deadline a lot in terms of potentially having the Kings trade for to be a backup 5 was Mason Plumlee. And the Kings have a chance to sign him if both parties want. And we talked a lot about Plumlee kind of being able to. I mean, he was really good with Charlotte last season, and he is a guy that is one of the more underrated passing centers in the league. Obviously, he's not as good as the names we know, like Jokic and Sabonis and stuff like that. But yeah, as a backup behind Sabonis, you'd be getting some continuity in the style of play, or at least you could try to do that. At least he would replicate some of the things Sabonis brings in a backup role. And he's pretty good offensively, and he's solid defensively. He's obviously old, though. He's going to be 33, or he just turned 33, I think. And you'd basically be getting him for, I don't know. I mean, like, you get a good season out of him, probably, maybe 2. But maybe you'd want to do that on a 1 or 2 year deal with the idea of developing somebody, whether that's Keita or somebody else. Plumlee's a good option for that, especially since we were talking about Keita maybe needing a little bit more time, or Plumlee, I guess, kind of provides that kind of a strategy, I guess. I mean, how do you feel about him? Is the age too much of an issue?
I mean, it shouldn't be, especially like this is kind of like one of those positions where you're not really trying to fill it for like years to come, right? It's like your backup 5 is not part of your core. So yeah, he needs to fit the timeline. I mean, those positions are kind of like the ones that you'll probably have to refill every couple of years. And I think Plumlee would fill in nicely for like a 2 or 3 year deal. The age doesn't really bother me too much. He's not playing that much. And it's someone we talked a lot about, like you said, at the trade deadline, is I feel like he could replicate Domas's game just enough off the bench for those 14 minutes where, for the sake of continuity, it could be good for the team. So yeah, no, I would like Plumlee. Maybe a 2 year deal would, until maybe Keita's ready or you draft someone and they're ready this year. I'm not sure, but the age doesn't really bother me too much in the limited amount of time that this backup 5 will be playing, unless they really want him to run the floor. But Plumlee has his other advantages than being like, I don't think the age is that big of a deal. Is what I'm saying.
Hey, he'd just be a solid backup. I mean, I think
Yeah.
the experience matters. I think he's played backup roles before. I mean,
I
obviously,
think he played backup to Jokic. He was in Denver for a
yeah,
minute.
yeah, you're right.
I
He's
forgot.
probably and obviously the Clippers traded for him to be a backup. I mean, to talk about kind of extending a career a little bit more, you know, the idea of playing 12 to 14 minutes or whatever is very appealing for longevity. And like he just does. I mean, he's not like he doesn't wow anybody, but he does like a little bit of everything in a way. I mean, even for like an older, not known as an athletic big man, like I feel like the few times the Kings saw him this past season, I feel like he was running the floor really well. I think he had like a few rim run alley oops or whatever, and I don't know. Sometimes it surprises you, and whenever you watch Plumlee, you can feel his feel for the game. It reaches out to you through the screen.
Hmm.
So he would be really solid and probably, as long as Bones Highland isn't there, I think he'd be a good locker room guy.
What
But
happened there? Man, this is something.
yeah, then in the playoffs, him and Bones Highland were like barking at each other on the bench.
That's funny. I wasn't even paying attention.
That's okay. Yeah. We didn't go over that before the show. Yeah, but I think Mason Plumlee, I mean, we're talking so much about him at the trade deadline. I feel like got to give him similar love here with free agency coming up not too far from now.
Hmm.
But also
Definitely.
but also still really feels far away, but
I know. I know. It's only like a month and like a week, really. Month and a week, 5 weeks.
yeah, something like
July
that.
1st, right?
Yeah.
I got 12.
Something like, yeah. I guess, you mentioned Plumlee being Jokic's backup. Well, the Nuggets traded for Thomas Bryant at the deadline this year. And he got a little bit of playtime, I think, here and there, but he just not being used in the playoffs. I think his defensive deficiencies are pretty considerable. He's like kind of up there with Christian Wood. Although I feel like he's probably a little bit more of a palatable option than Christian Wood in the eyes
Hmm.
of a lot of fans.
I think so too.
He had like a really good game against the Kings in like
Yeah. He scored
was
like
it
30.
January? Yeah,
Yeah.
it was. I mean,
Killed us.
he could be really good. And I mean, the injury history is there, but he's still pretty young, and I feel like you might be able to get something out of him on the defensive end. He's got a 7'6" wingspan, and he's going to be 26, I think, in a few months. So he's an option. I think if you want to get enamored with an offensive player or an offensive centric backup center, Thomas Bryant is the better option than Christian Wood.
Hmm.
And he'd be interesting, but there's a reason we weren't like talking. There was not a lot of like, oh, the Kings should trade for Thomas Bryant. I mean, like in terms of what the Kings need out of a backup five, I don't really know. And it'd be interesting to see what Thomas Bryant gets in terms of suitors in the offseason.
I know. See,
But
he's barely played in the playoffs, right?
yeah, I don't think he's played at all.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's really he's probably pissed. Really hurting his stock in the free agent market.
Why'd you trade for me? Well, they're
Yeah,
not even like I don't
I
even think
know.
they're playing a center. Like it's Jokic is the only center that plays, I think, for the Nuggets,
Mm.
if I'm not mistaken. I mean, they're running like an 8 or 9 man rotation with like no backup center. I don't know. The game is so different today. I mean, like you can get away with like playing small five. I think, if I'm not mistaken, they can play like Aaron Gordon at the small five. I mean, talk about a versatile player and whatnot. It's just like, why play Thomas Bryant? You don't need the offense from him. You're getting it from other places. His defense is probably just so bad that you don't want that out there.
Yeah, and you know what? Kind of bringing that up, man. We're talking about bringing guys in. I mean, we were talking about it a little last week, just to kind of take it off Thomas Bryant, but stay on the point of going small at center and maybe not playing a center as the backup five. And we were discussing it last week with Trey Lyles, and if you're bringing Sasha Vezenkov over, because it sounds like Sasha's coming, and I mean, you don't really want to bring over Sasha Vezenkov and then just have him ride the bench. It just would be kind of pointless at this point, and he'd probably just leave. Why would you stay in the NBA to play like third string power forward behind Keegan Murray and Trey Lyles, and then Vezenkov? And I know Trey Lyles is a free agent, but I mean, I'd be amazed if he doesn't get brought back. And considering what he did for the team last year and his willingness to stay in Sac, so it's like, well, maybe Vezinkov's your backup 4, and then you just go put Trey at the backup 5. I mean, we saw that in the playoffs against the Warriors. We saw that in the overtime against Minnesota. In overtime, that one game where he kind of just made Rudy Gobert irrelevant as a stretch 5. So I think that's always an option too. And I think bringing like Vezinkov coming over makes it like a little more realistic. And I have no problem with Lyles being the backup 5, considering Metu was the backup 5 all year and they're the same size. And I think Lyles is probably a little stronger.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point. Because, you can't play Lyles at the backup 5 as much because then now you're kind of losing out on essentially your backup 4. And so now you have a guy that can essentially slide into that. And, maybe you just buttress that with, some size at the third center.
Mm-hmm.
And that could totally work. That would be quite the option. And I think he's earned a nice payday. He's a great role player. He's going to have other people that would want to sign him, obviously. And if you're going to be paying him a little bit more, I mean, get the most out of his versatility. Get the most out of his floor stretching ability. I feel like to do that, you play him at the backup 5, or at least primarily as the backup 5. You have all the options. I mean, you're talking about more versatility at that point. And I think it's a compelling prospect to think about. If we're going to be talking about Thomas Bryant and Christian Wood, you got to mention that.
Mm-hmm. Thomas Bryant, it kind of like my 2 cents. Like, yeah, he's a great offensive guy. I don't know, just defense, and I just don't feel like that's. I feel like he could be molded into a better defensive player than Christian Wood, comparing those two. But at the same time, I just feel like there's better options out there. And I feel like he's a guy that will probably command a little more pay than maybe Drew Eubanks.
Yeah. No, I think that's for sure. I just don't even know if he'd really like fit in terms of his, like, he can stretch the floor, but other than that, I don't know if he'd be the greatest fit.
Yeah, he just doesn't seem like the best fit for the Kings offense.
Yeah. You know who would be perfect, but he's not going to leave Philadelphia? Paul Reed. Yeah. I really like Paul Reed. I think a lot of people like Paul Reed. Just a good defender, a good rebounder. Gets into foul, can not get into foul trouble, but does foul a fair amount for the relative to the minutes he plays. But man, you would just be getting a really solid hard worker that keeps his head down, does his job, real blue collar guy. And yeah, he's a restricted free agent. He likes Philadelphia, so there's pretty much no chance it's going to happen. But hey, if he was an option, like I would consider him near the top of this list. I mean, he'd be probably cheaper than Naz Reid, and I think what he does again defensively and on the glass, that could be extremely useful in the backup 5 role. He's one of those guys that I feel like we would grow a similar affinity to him. Being able to watch him for a season, we'd grow probably a similar affinity as we have for Trey Lyles, just in terms of like, just plays the game the right way.
Yeah. Experience as the backup to an all NBA center too.
It's true. To an MVP.
Not my MVP. But talking about growing affinity to a player, someone we like a lot and who the Kings did not re-sign last year and kind of bounced around this season without a lot of playing time, Damian Jones, who does have a player option in Utah this season. I don't know. I think he'll accept it.
I think he will take. Yeah, he'll pick up his player option because I don't think he's necessarily guaranteed another job in the NBA. But I think that doesn't happen if he's texting his buddy Monty McNair.
Yeah, right.
And Monty's like, "Hey, like you come here, you compete for." I mean, you talk about it like maybe a guy that either competes with Cater or something like that, or even a guy that you want to compete for a backup 5 spot, whatever the deal is. I mean, how much would he wouldn't even be getting paid that much money.
No, was he even getting paid that much money in LA? I mean, what's the player option for? Like 2 years, $4 million?
Yeah, I think so.
It was very small.
Yeah, 2 years, 4 or 5, I think. It was
Yeah.
not big. So, he'd probably get paid about the same amount and get maybe even a little bit less with the notion of actually getting an opportunity to play rather than, a Jazz team that has a little bit more retooling to do. And they also have, Walker Kessler there, who made the all rookie first team, rightfully so. Yeah, it'd be interesting. It's just like, I guess it's just a question of like, does he have enough in the tank? Does he really care about having an NBA career? I mean, the guy's got like a degree in engineering from Vanderbilt. Not questioning his work ethic, but I mean, like, bigger picture with, these guys are human beings with lives. It might be one of those things. I don't know. But I mean, if he could come back and do what he did last season, that would be awesome. I mean, there was a reason kind of early into the mid part of the year we were talking about, man, they should really try to get him to be the backup 5. I mean, his ability to kind of be a solid defender, kind of do some switching, be a versatile at the 5 position on that end of the floor. And then also his jump shooting seemed to be kind of coming around. He was hitting like mid-rangers and even some threes. Yeah, he just seemed like he would have really fit the mold for what they needed. But I guess it's just a question of what's left in the tank and what he would want to do going forward.
Yeah, I mean, you have to question if he can produce that late season run in 21-22. Yeah, I mean, he didn't play that much this year, and I think we talked about it in a podcast earlier this year. Like, even when he did play, they weren't good minutes.
And again, like on the notion of like, having other career prospects or whatnot. And I'm not, again, I don't know any of this for sure. And it's not even a condemnation of him, but it's just like, yeah, maybe I can get one more NBA contract if I just play my butt, finish out, play my butt off, get one more NBA contract and whatever. I mean, that would probably, I guess what I'm trying to say is that would explain his excellent play in his last 15 games after Sabonis got hurt.
That's true.
Following their acquisition. So I don't know, but if he was ready to bounce back and kind of reignite, his career as an NBA rotation guy, he would be a great option.
Mm-hmm.
But, who knows? I feel like that's us just hoping because we just like Damian Jones.
Yeah.
Like Damian Jones. I love that guy.
Damian Jones and Trey Lyles took my heart at the end of 21-22 season.
Man. You're just like, I don't know who this Sabonis guy is that they traded for. I don't know why everybody keeps talking about him.
It's so funny, too, because Trey Lyles, I'm like, whatever. Like, we got Dante DiVincenzo. Yeah, we got Trey Lyles and Josh Jackson. But Trey Lyles is, like, the best piece of that trade easily. I mean, clearly with DiVincenzo gone.
Yeah.
I never would have expected Trey to have the role that he does now.
No, yeah. He didn't play like the first couple of games where he only had like little garbage time minutes. And then they just put him in the starting lineup and it's just great.
Yeah, he just went off.
Awesome.
It's like OKC, right?
Yeah. Oh, man. Those are the days.
I know.
The end of a season ago or 1 year ago.
It was fun.
Watching Davion in a starting role.
Davion.
Trade Fox! Trade De'Aaron Fox! No. That was not us. But
no.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
Stuff changes.
It sure can in 12 months' time. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, that's a lot of the potential backup centers that are set to be free agents this year. I think we can kind of both agree that Naz Reid is kind of a bit of a pipe dream. But Eubanks kind of seems like a pretty decent option. And it's like, we'd say he's like a lesser known name. It's like other people, that follow the Kings or analyze the Kings, whatever, have mentioned him too. I mean, I think, again, him being in the Western Conference, people are pretty familiar with him. And when you really think about it, he would be really, really good relative to the role he would play.
He's my number one option. I like realistic. So,
well, actually, you know what? I have to correct us both. Our number one option for the, who should really play backup 5 next season is Victor Wembanyama. I don't know if you've heard of him.
Just trade.
I think the Kings
maybe Chimezie too.
Yeah, man.
We're a rookie. And we'll see what the
Wembanyama.
Kings do in the draft too. I mean, I doubt they'll get a center that's going to be a backup, the backup five right off the bat. But who knows? Maybe they make a trade with that 24th pick. Maybe they bring in a couple guys. Trades can happen as well, not just free agency. And I mean, I'm not saying they're going to trade for a backup five, but maybe they make a trade and a backup five comes along with the package. So I don't know. A
Yeah,
lot can happen more than just free agency. But
that's
free
true.
agency seems like the most plausible route to solve this issue.
That's true. I mean, we'll get more into the draft next week and in the weeks to come, but like off the top of my head, I think somebody that could maybe come in and at least compete for his backup five role, although I still think, especially on like a winning team like the Kings, you'd like to see him develop a little bit more. But I mean, hey, the Jazz got Kessler, or they didn't get, I think it was Cleveland drafted Walker Kessler in the late first round, and ends up getting traded to Utah in the Donovan Mitchell trade, and is great. So I mean, there's quality rotational players to be found late in the draft, and so Derek Lively, the second out of Duke, is a guy that you might think about in that role. But I mean, outside of that, there's like a guy named James Nagy he played for Barcelona in the EuroLeague last season. He's 18 though, and he's a project. So it's like in the way of like guys that can come and play now. It's kind of hard to envision anybody outside of Duke's Derek Lively. So we'll see. But plenty more on the draft to come.
Yeah, a month away, June 22nd.
That's right. That's right.
So, yeah.
And stay tuned to capcitycrown.com. You can find out about potential prospects that the Kings can have. They have the 24th pick, the 38th pick, and then I think the 54th or 50-something pick. But, a lot of prospects there in the late first, early second round to think about. So stay tuned for that.
More to come, yeah. But, well, I don't know. Do you have anything else to talk about, or want to end it there?
Well, I mean, one thing that maybe we didn't mention, and maybe the listeners know this, but unfortunately for what seems to be soon to be King Sasha Vezenkov, Olympiacos lost the EuroLeague final just I think this weekend, and not without a great effort from Vezenkov, but heartbreaking. He wanted to win a EuroLeague title and didn't get to do it. I don't know if that'll necessarily stop him from coming to the NBA, because it just seems like such a sure thing, I think, just from what everybody's hearing. So, but still, I guess that's news. Maybe that'll be a chip on his shoulder as he comes to the NBA. He's like, what? Screw a EuroLeague title. I want an NBA championship.
Yeah, for real. And it kind of just shows that, I mean, he was obviously the best player on that team. And it shows that he has some leadership ability, and he can perform well under pressure too. And it's perfect because the Kings are probably going to make the playoffs next year and want some guy that won't fade in the spotlight. And Vezenkov scored 29 points in the EuroLeague final, and I mean, showing like a guy who can rise to the occasion when he needs to. So I think that's good to see.
Sasha Fierce.
What's up, Sasha? Sasha Pavlovich.
Sasha Pavlovich. That was a favorite of Mike Brown. Mike Brown loves Sasha Pavlovich, and he cited Pavlovich, I think, when he went to Germany to see Eurobasket last summer.
Mm-hmm.
And he got interviewed by European Basketball Press, and he was talking about like players who come and have really good skill sets and whatnot, and you got to try to maximize it. And he's like, a guy that I feel like could have maybe had a better career because it, was so talented and had all these like tools and whatnot, was Sasha Pavlovich. And I think he had him in Cleveland for a little bit. So, I don't know. That just came to mind. I don't really have a point there, but
it's a good story.
Sasha Pavlovich, baby.
Yeah. Sasha. Anyways. Sasha Vujovic too.
Yeah. Who are some other Sashas?
Sasha, I don't know these other two guys. Sasha Danilovich. They all ended with itches. I see.
Yeah.
They said, I guess Sasha Vezenkov won't. He'll break that streak. That
Yeah.
streak. Yeah, those are the three. But he played in 96, 97. That was it. Oh, Sasha Khan in 2016. It's a guy named Sasha Khan on Cleveland. Yeah, that's it. 4.
Hopefully, like 5 years from now, people aren't going down this list of Sashas and being like, I don't know who this guy is, Sasha Vezenkov. Yeah. Hopefully, this isn't foretelling that future.
Yeah, let's hope not. I don't think it will. I think Sasha's a good fit for the Kings, and I actually have high hopes for him. Usually, I'm not too high on these guys, but I don't know. I think he's going to fit the system really well, and
Yeah.
I think the Kings are going to have a nice role for him.
Yeah, he's just a legitimate shooter. I mean, I think that alone gives him a chance, but the style of play that they're playing at Olympiacos and kind of his ability to come off a movement and hit shots, from all sorts of different ranges, it's just huge. He's got great touch. It's just the guy's got great touch. That's all you can see. Just great touch, good feel for the game, and tough guy. So he'll fit right in, as anybody will tell you, because we're all reading the same stuff. Watching the same highlight videos, watching the same EuroLeague games, all that stuff. But hey, it's a consensus, I guess, at least at this point.
Yeah, I think so. So I'm excited for him for sure.
Yeah.
But all right, I think that brings us to the end of it. Comment who you want as your fifth, as your backup 5 going into the season, or who you think the Kings can acquire that would be a good fit. Love to hear your opinion. John, anything to wrap it up?
Nope. I think that covers it. Stay tuned. More to come on the draft, because as we enter that month leading into it, that always gets to be compelling. And, we'll see what the Kings do in a different draft position than they're used to, I guess.
Yeah, be interesting to see who the Kings get. But all right, I want to thank you all for tuning in. And until next time, have a good one.